Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. It is the first Wednesday of May 2020, which means it is time for another installment of Archival GMing. That series where I take a look at previous games I have covered on the show and talk about GM tips relating to them. These tips can be generic and applied to other games. I try to take that sort of look at them in most cases. This month, I am looking at Legend of the Five Rings. Now, previously I've covered political games, so that applies here as well as wherever other settings you can think of. For this month, I am looking at the other of the two main classic types of Legend of the Five Ring games, the Magistrate game. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about Magistrates in Legend of the Five Rings. When you start looking at running a Magistrate game for Legend of the Five Rings, the first thing you have to learn is how the Judicial System in Rokugan works. It's fairly straightforward. Testimony. Eyewitness testimony is what they count on in Rokugan. They don't go looking for evidence like we would today. They don't go looking at the angle of blood spatter or such. They go looking for those who can give testimony. The more honorable the samurai who gives that testimony, the better. And that's pretty much one of the little quirks of it. The higher the honor or higher the status of the samurai, the more likely they are going to be believed. Even if you have 3 samurai who are well known, have sterling reputations, and they give testimony about a visiting lord committing some heinous act, if the lord says, "I didn't do it," their testimony is worthless, because the Lord is higher status. So, what you have to do as a magistrate is, once you figure out who did it, or should I say, who you want to take the blame for doing whatever crime you're investigating, you have to get that person to confess. Now, you can do it the Scorpion way. See the tragedy of Matsuino in my Scorpion video, where the honest Scorpion basically played mind games with a high-ranking samurai and got him to say words that were tantamount to a confession in front of several witnesses, impeccable witnesses, namely the honest Scorpion's Yoriki. And of course the honest Scorpion himself, because Bayushi Yojiro is a Emerald Magistrate. But that is the thing. That's one way you can go about it. You can play those mind games. More commonly, if you can't get a number of equal or higher status samurai to testify, but you have a pretty darn good idea who did it, you can torture them into confession. They'll confess eventually. You just have to use enough torture. The third option, in the event a accuser is not high enough status to sway the testimony, they can challenge to a duel. And in Rokugan, a duel is the ultimate decider of right and wrong. So, you could have a absolutely great duelist who falsely accuses someone, but they win the duel. So, the kami have said that they are in the right. And that is the judicial system of Rokugan. Punishments for samurai amount to, deciding how the person dies. Frequently, seppuku is the option. And just remember, in Legend of the Five Rings, seppuku is always an option. Please always remind the person you're investigating of that when you're investigating them in a magistrate game. Of course, now that we have a basic handle on the judicial system, I will never call the system of Rokugan a justice system. We can go looking into how you run a magistrate game. There are basically three types of magistrate games. You have the first type, where the players are the Yoriki for a single Emerald Magistrate or Jade Magistrate. What this means is there is an NPC directly over the whole of the group of PCs. The PCs act as this individual's bodyguards. They act as his gophers. If he needs someone to fetch an Edda to move a dead body, he gets to ask one of the PCs to do that. If he needs someone to observe a place for a period of time, that's what the PCs get to do. If he needs someone to go round up all of the samurai who were at a certain tea house the night before, so that he can talk to them, again, this is what the PCs do. If he needs someone to go talk to the leather workers, guess what the PCs are doing? And this is sort of the PCs are, they're not magistrates in and of themselves yet. What they are is they are people effectively in training to become a magistrate. You spend enough time as a Yoriki, eventually you move up to being an actual magistrate. Of course, it depends on what type of magistrate. Clan magistrates are a little bit more flexible on some things than an Emerald Magistrate would be. But in all cases, you need to consider that the Yoriki are handpicked. And if I were running a game, I would be putting them either with an Emerald or a Jade Magistrate. Just because that's going to justify a cross-clan mix, and is going to have them traveling to different parts of the Empire. Now then, the other two types are the actual full-fledged magistrates. Generally speaking, I would not start off with one of these, especially not with a newer player base. I would wait until the players have developed somewhat. Though the Fantasy Flight Games intro module in the starter box is set up to justify a bunch of fresh out of their Genpuku samurai becoming Emerald Magistrates. And they get a fairly significant first investigation in the module of the Palace of the Emerald Champion. And this is where they get introduced to the real side of being a magistrate. Or should I say, being an Emerald Magistrate. You see, an Emerald Magistrate is charged with enforcing the Imperial laws. But it's a little bit more than that. They are charged with maintaining the peace of the Empire. The Emerald Champion is supposed to make sure everything goes smoothly. So this means sometimes a guilty person will be let go because to punish them would be to create an interclan incident. It could be a cause of a blood feud between two clans. And the Emerald Magistrate does not want to cause that. So an Emerald Magistrate has to be careful with how they do things. They have to look at the political situation and the repercussions outside of just the crime itself to determine whether they're going to actually do something about it. Jade Magistrates are a little bit more simple. They specifically look for Maho, people using magic to do things they really, really shouldn't, and people dealing with spirits they probably shouldn't. That is the core of what the Jade Magistrates do. They basically deal with the supernatural crimes in the Empire. They are frequently crab, and frankly, they don't care about your politics. When you are protecting the soul of the Empire, literally, it doesn't matter what the political situation is. Taint in the heart of the Empire is bad, and therefore taint is fought and dealt with in the most direct and thorough manners possible. A Emerald Magistrate, upon finding a town has not been paying its taxes might punish the lord of the town, because it is the lord's duty to make sure his town pays his taxes. A Jade Magistrate who finds one zombie in a town might just burn the whole town and all the people living in it alive, to be thorough. And oh yeah, he might go a little bit around the town, just to be sure. Now, of course, there was a large chunk of time where the Jade Magistrates weren't a thing. This is kind of because a minor clan, the Snake Clan, the Phoenix, found some things wrong in their practices. And so they killed them. And basically said, look, they were doing Maho. And a Jade Magistrate kind of spoke up in protest. And so the Phoenix leveraged their power to essentially bury the office of the Jade Champion for a long time. It would eventually come back when there were supernatural threats that needed someone who could act across clan boundaries with impunity. But, in short, for the most part, Jade Magistrates deal with supernatural stuff. They do not deal with mundane murders. They do not deal with any sort of mundane crime. They deal exclusively with supernatural stuff. And that can be a very interesting game. I know, because in my long-running game, my players ended up dealing consistently with some sorts of supernatural threats. Whether it be a Kansen loose, or someone opening a gate to Gakido inadvertently. The players have long dealt with supernatural stuff. And they started off as Yoriki. And eventually gained the reputation and status to be magistrates in their own right. And that's how I would run a magistrate game. That you start them as Yoriki for a magistrate. Whether that person be an Emerald Magistrate, a Jade Magistrate, or is just a Sepun Guardsman acting as an Imperial Magistrate without any direct ties to the Emerald or Jade. Though that's not really that common. And with that said, that is it for this month's Archival GMing. I will see you next month with a brand new GM tip topic. So until then, have fun and keep gaming.